Hi everyone, good morning.
Morning, teacher.
Morning.
You guys seem really tired. Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Yes, we are fine.
You fine? Rapi, Chong, you okay? Healthy?
Yes, teacher.
Alright. So remember the essay that I have given you last week?
Yes, we remember, teacher.
Alright. So how about we have one of you guys to present about the essay? Can we have Rapi to present the essay? Have you completed your essay, Rapi?
Yes, teacher. But do I have to? Can someone else do it?
No, Rapi, we want to hear your voice. Your very charming voice.
Okay, teacher.
Alright. So good luck, Rapi.
Good luck.
So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay. Once upon a time, there lived a jump. There lived a human called
Boo.
Dumpling and
Boo. Boo.
teacher. I can
Qayyum.
guess.
Why? Is it because of Qayyum?
Yes, he's mocking me.
Qayyum, why did you do that to Rapi?
I'm just joking, teacher. I'm bored.
You shouldn't do that to Rapi. Don't you feel bad for him?
I'm sorry, Rapi. I'm just bored.
Okay, guys, since we are already at here, do you know what kind of syndrome that Rafi was actually dealing with just now? The situation that Rafi was dealing with just now. Do you guys know what is it called?
No. What is it?
No.
Okay, so it is actually called language anxiety, which is actually a really common syndrome, especially for us as a non-native speaker. Like Rafi, when he is trying to speak in English, he keeps on stuttering and feeling really anxious, right?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, so since we are already talking about this topic, let's dig in even more further about this topic, shall we? Do you guys want to know more about language anxiety?
Yes.
Yes, teacher.
All right, so let's open our book right now. Hi everyone, my name is Nur Ain Shazwani binti Rahman. So the topic that we have chosen for our second language acquisition research is language anxiety, which is a really common syndrome among a non-native speaker, even in Malaysia itself. So the article journal that we have chosen specifically to study about this language anxiety is Investigating English Language Speaking Anxiety Among Malaysian Undergraduate Learners.
Okay, thank you, Teacher Ain, for conducting the class just now. Language anxiety. It is common among our Malaysian students, especially Malaysian undergraduate learners in universities. So, before we move on, my name is Muhammad Qayyum Eizwan. Good morning to Dr. Asma and my fellow classmates. Okay, into language anxiety. According to McIntyre, 1994, foreign language anxiety, or known as xenoglossophobia, is the feeling of unease, worry, nervousness, afraid of using second or foreign language. In this journal, we will be criticizing the investigation of English language speaking anxiety among Malaysian undergraduate learners. In this modern era, Malaysian graduates lack the skills of fluently speaking English language as their second language, and this situation has alerted on the concerns of securing employment in the future, whereby English language is the foundation on connecting and linking the outside world. And the aim of the study is to determine the level of speaking anxiety among Malaysian undergraduate learners and determine the dominant factors that contribute to English language speaking anxiety. Okay, moving on to the salient theory that is used in this journal. As stated by Suleymanova 2013, the concern over the communication competence among the second or foreign language learners in the recent years may trigger a high level of speaking anxiety. In the study, the foreign language learners stated they feel stressful, nervous, and anxious while learning to speak the target language and said to have mental block against language learning. According to Caritas 2016, also spotted the notion that students feel intimidated to perform orally and perceive it negatively. Unlike writing, the rules on speaking is different in various ways, and according to Carter and Union 2002, speaking is both productive as well as interactive skill. I partially agree on Suleimanova's statement because language anxiety is often seen as a negative factor, but it is possible to conceptualize it. As argued by Brown 2002, there are some degree that anxiety can be facilitative. Based upon Bailey 1983 study on competitiveness and anxiety in second language learning, facilitative anxiety has shown that it was a key element of successful language learners. We cannot deny that Malaysian undergraduate learners have the basic notion of English language rules, because since they are kindergarten, English language has been enforced as the second language that is L2. And language anxiety can be counted with the role of teachers in class, focusing on creating warm and friendly classroom environment. This provides positive encouragement to the students. This problem can be reduced by discussing its nature and reinforcing the ways it can be a source of development. Much of this can be accomplished by reinforcing various teaching methods. Cannell and Swain has shown and highlighted four components of communicative competence. Firstly, grammatical competence, words and rules, that enables the speaker to use knowledge and skills needed for understanding and expressing the literal meaning of utterance. Secondly, socio-linguistic competence, the appropriateness of language used in a variety of social situations. Next, discourse competence, described as mastery of rules that determine ways in which forms and meanings are combined to achieve a meaningful unity of spoken or written text. And lastly, strategic competence, appropriate use of communication strategies that are required to compensate for breakdowns in communication due to insufficient competence in one or more components of communicative competence. The role of teachers who adopt the communicative competence approach to teaching language incorporate a variety of activities like games, quizzes, problem-solving tasks, pairing and group works, also discussion. This study is by Sri Hari 2012. This scenario will teach future generations to not be afraid to learn and reducing the language anxiety that is experienced by Malaysian undergraduate learners.
Greetings everyone, my name is Muhammad Rapi bin Zulkifli, and today I will be expressing my views on a second language article that me and my team have analyzed, and we will see whether these findings are related to our subject matter or is it not. So there are a total of 4 findings classified into 4 different tables, and I will be discussing table 1 and table 2. So to start off, we are going to discuss table 1. Now table 1 is an examination taken by 42 participants, and these 42 participants, their anxiety levels are scaled and analyzed using a set that is called the Foreign Language Speaking Anxiety Scale, or in other words FLSAS, which is adapted from Bolomir in 2019. So out of all the 42 participants, we have the data shows that 37 out of 42, which is 88% of the bunch, experience moderate to high anxiety levels. And furthermore, they also obtain a total FLSA score which is of 70 or more, which is considered average high to very high. Now for the rest of them, they got a lower score, which is 69 and below, and they also show an anxiety level which is lower compared to the other bunch. So this table is significant to Horowitz's and Cope's theory of test anxiety, which is basically a theory which defines the individual placing heavy stress on themselves in order to get better grades, and in turn places impossible demands for them to meet. So because of this, they face heavy stress pre-examination, and which might have triggered their anxiety levels to the rooftop, and this might have some negative repercussions if they cannot contain themselves. In addition, several other factors might have contributed to the high anxiety levels, such as eagerness or maybe even overthinking, because those who experience this, they wanted to have a very good grade in order to define themselves as a very good student, and because of that they might have experienced a breakdown inside, which might have caused them to become very anxious. And this is very bad, as even the greatest students might face blunders when they are conducting the examinations. Furthermore, this is very likely to affect those who live in Malaysia, as our education system heavily emphasizes on the academic performance, which also might contribute to the anxiety levels. And we have also found a similar study conducted by R. Darmi and P. Albion on the year of 2012, which they scaled language anxiety among Malaysians which are conducting examinations, and it is proof, and they found out that with satisfactory reliability, it stated that the theories presented by Horwitz and Cope are related or parallel to what these undergraduates face when they are doing their examinations, which is further proof that solidifies the accuracy of these charts in relation to language anxiety among Malaysian students. Right, now moving on to Table 2. Now Table 2 focuses more on speaking anxiety in relation to the three theories that have been pioneered by Horwitz and Cope. Now, this study has been conducted with 28 participants, and all 28 participants have experienced high levels of anxiety, and they have portrayed that they have experienced at least one of these theories that have been pioneered by by Horwitz and Cope, with communication apprehension being the most experienced out of all the participants, fear of negative evaluation following behind, and test anxiety as the last one. According to this study, it is agreeable that even with experienced speakers, they will regardless face a level of anxiety when they are, because Malaysians who learn English as their second language sometimes do mistakes and blunders which might become embarrassing, especially the ones involving group discussions with their peers. Furthermore, other factors such as peer pressure, environment, and personality traits also play a role in this in the test. For example, peer pressure, as we can see, we live in a very competitive society where academic roles play a large role in determining our status in the academic world. The environments being the teachers, the educators, which might be fearsome to some, which might cause them to become fearful of doing mistakes, thus increasing their anxiety levels, as well as personality traits, which more or less refers to some who is very introverted or maybe shy of expressing themselves, and because they are faced with this task, they might become very anxious, and therefore contributes to the data that is showed on Table 2.
My name is Ryan Remond, and I will be continuing Rapi's discussion through Table 3 and Table 4. So according to Table 3, the test admitted to the undergraduate students which have undergone moderate levels of speaking anxiety similar to the thesis explained by Horwitz shows similar results to those participants who have experienced high levels of anxiety, in that communication apprehension is statistically shown to be one of the main contributors of English language speaking anxiety among high to moderate anxiety learners. As such, to high anxiety learners, the cause might come from their personalities or certain individuals in which they are less experienced in social interactions, or they are just shy to interact, thus suppressing their ability to properly partake in the test given. In addition, they are afraid they may not be able to express their thoughts and opinions effectively while speaking English. Therefore, it is agreeable to an extent that even participants with a moderate amount of anxiety still are likely concerned towards interactive face-to-face tests rather than the concern of being able to portray a specific social impression or test anxiety. Moreover, certain situations can and will impede one's mind, which will hamper speech performance, leading to communication apprehension. Situations such as speaking in a formal setting or in front of a crowd, for instance, in front of a classroom, or public speaking in front of many people. Situations such as speaking in a formal setting or in front of a crowd, for instance, in front of a classroom or public speaking in front of many people, may start the anxiety within them and cause them to lose focus. These situations can cause anxiety and can lead to severe disorders and maybe panic attacks in certain individuals. As studied by Suleimanova, anxiety within students may tamper with each one of their capabilities and their ability to focus with the target language, even with ideas in their mind. In relation with Malaysian students, most fear face-to-face interactions in a formal setting, and using formal English has not been applied or properly encouraged in their lives. For the fourth and last table, which is for participants who have experienced low levels of anxiety, following the theory laid down by Horowitz, the participants were more concerned for the test that was undergone, which proved to be higher than the previous two types of participants, in which test anxiety was higher than communication apprehension and the fear of negative evaluation. Thus, it is clear that test anxiety is the dominant contributor of English language anxiety for low anxiety learners. It can be agreed on that low anxiety learners are prone to test anxiety, partly because the participants are comprised of high proficiency learners, high proficiency students who are more aware of their purpose in acquiring a foreign language. Low anxiety students are more anxious about the oral test conducted, as passing it is a requirement for being able to be employed. Furthermore, learning another language requires an exertion to an extent and a focus towards grammatical aspects, making it quite difficult even for low anxiety speaking students to bear. Additional tests also show that fear of tests faced by students conjures an intimidating atmosphere for the participants, and such atmosphere can cause difficulties in an individual's performance. Atmospheres and situations such as university and job interviews, which most of the time require the attendees to speak in a formal English setting, will create such an atmosphere, causing even those with low anxiety to feel under pressure.
Hello, I'm Chong and I will be discussing with you on the implications of the study. So, this article showcases a few negative factors that will cause English language speaking anxiety. These negative factors will give impacts on the students' learning process and also their speaking performance. This article also raises awareness because it highlights the importance of mastering the language skills. This is because the undergraduates will join the society and compete, and also to get further opportunities to develop their skills. However, there are only 3 negative factors that are measured in this article. Hence, the result is not optimum because there are many other existing factors. According to our research, anxiety can also originate from different language cultures, different social status, and also even the fear of losing self-identity. Next, this article can also serve as a guidance in the education system. This article collects data from students' personal experience, and this helps the educators to understand students' language anxiety better and develop suitable teaching materials and also learning activities that are compatible to the students' level. Besides, it also urges the educators to be more sensitive towards students' language anxiety problem. However, this article cannot be used as a complete guidance as it only explains a few negative factors in a general way and a few solutions without precise planning. Next, this article can also be used as a base for future research in a related fields. This is because it only proposes 3 negative factors and solutions in a general way. Therefore, this article does not depict a complete research, and this situation promotes further exploration of dominant factors and also possible strategies to overcome this problem.
Okay guys, now we are going to move on to the next part of this discussion, which is the possible relevance of this study to the student's personal experience, which is based on our own personal experience as a student while speaking in a second language. So according to the research, Horwitz and Koch, who introduced the foreign language anxiety or the second language anxiety as a syndrome, have identified the stem of this language anxiety. The stem of this language anxiety are communication apprehension, fear of negative evaluation, and test anxiety. The first stem or the first factor of second language anxiety is communication apprehension. As a student, sometimes we tend to get really reluctant or shy when we are required to communicate in a foreign language, for example in an English language, because we always have to deal with this one term called context-based apprehension. In this case, we always struggle with making ourselves being understood because we tend to have doubts or wonder if our context of speech will reach a mutual understanding among our friends or the person that we are talking with. It is mainly because we are always so insecure about our lack of complex vocabulary in a foreign language, for example in an English language, to express our ideas and thoughts about certain topic. So our inability to fluently express ourselves always leads to such a huge frustration or even worse, embarrassment, because we always feel like we are going to be ridiculed by our other fluent classmates or friends. Okay, so right now we are going to move on to the next stem or the next factor of second language anxiety, which is the fear of negative evaluation. As a student, we always have these tendencies to avoid speaking in a foreign language or a second language because we always feel like we are being watched and judged by our own peers and teachers, especially inside the classroom. We always feel like we are lacking in so many things, for example in our vocabulary, grammar skills, or our improper sentence structures, and we always think that these flaws that we are having are being monitored by other fluent speakers, and this is making us so insecure, and eventually our self-esteem will be lowered down. We always feel like these mistakes or the mistakes that we are bound to make will make us being perceived as a slow learner by our own friends or peers who are way much of a better speaker than us. Okay, so we have finally reached the last stem or the last factor of our second language anxiety, which is the test anxiety. Frankly speaking, test anxiety is actually really common among us as students, especially during our language oral test, because we have to apply all the knowledge that we have learned inside the learning class on the test at that certain time. Another thing about test anxiety is that we always try to compare ourselves with our own classmates, for example, the knowledge and all the preparation that have made, and once we feel like we cannot catch up with their performance, we will eventually have these little negative thoughts or a negative mindset that we are not good enough and we will never be good enough to catch up with them. Honestly, our desire to be competitive with our own friends or peers should be perceived in a positive way, but in some cases it could make us feel really demotivated too, especially when we cannot catch up with their performance. In this case, this will make us focus more on the things that we are not good at instead of focusing on the things that we are good at or the things that we have excelled at. The last approach that we have came up with to overcome the foreign language anxiety or the second language anxiety among our students is by applying the behaviorist perspective in our teaching lesson. Through the application of this theory, students who are brave enough to conquer their fear and embrace the mistakes by speaking in a foreign language that is assigned to them, for example, an English language, they should be given a reward for their braveness. Every time they manage to correct their mistakes, for example, a grammatical mistake, as a teacher, we should try to provide them with compliments, praises, or even gifts to motivate them to try harder. This will eventually provoke the students to try not to do the same mistakes again, or at least reduce the mistakes so that they will be complimented by their teachers again in the near future. In a long term, this actually is going to be a really good practice for them in order for them to overcome their second language anxiety, because they will be able to build up their confidence in a social environment where they need to engage in a conversation with people around them, especially those who speak in a second language.
Hello, I'm back again to talk with you about our conclusion for the study. So, foreign or second language anxiety is actually a very common dilemma among the non-native speakers or learners. This situation could be either destructive or motivating, as it depends on how the students themselves try to perceive and handle the problem. We as future teachers are encouraged to be more sensitive towards the students' language anxiety problem and use our language to guide them and lead them. Besides, we are also hoping that the society will put more consideration and give more support instead of downgrading the students' inability to speak like a native. Thank you!